A man so wealthy he funded the army of Tabuk, yet so modest the angels were actually embarrassed in front of him. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping way back in time. We're shifting our focus from the bustling gold markets of ancient Mecca over to the serene, rapidly expanding landscapes of the early Islamic Caliphate, really trying to understand the profound legacy of Uthman ibn Affan.
Let's just dive right into that remarkable contrast, right? In a city that was frankly often driven by greed, Uthman was this merchant whose honesty and compassion were just as famous as his massive fortune. But you know, his story isn't just about the sheer amount of earthly wealth he had, it's really about exactly what he chose to do with it.
Section 1. The Possessor of Two Lights, Faith and Modesty.
So, well before the grand titles and the vast empire, Uthman was already a highly respected Meccan merchant. He accepted Islam really early on, actually, through the invitation of Abu Bakr. And his incredibly pure character quickly secured him this really unique position within Prophet Muhammad's own family. He earned a title literally unlike any other, Dhul-Noorayn, which translates to the Possessor of Two Lights. Why? Well, he got this incredible honor by being the absolute only man to ever marry two daughters of the Prophet, first Ruqayya and then later Kulthum. This unprecedented bond just completely cemented his place, not just in history, but right in the heart of the early Muslim community.
To really grasp the depth of his character, I want you to picture this intimate little scene. One day, the Prophet was resting at home, just relaxing with his clothing slightly loose. Abu Bakr asks to enter, and the Prophet stays relaxed. Umar asks to enter, and he still remains as he was. But when Uthman asked for permission to come in, the Prophet immediately sat up properly and adjusted his clothing. When someone asked him why he did that, his response perfectly captured Uthman's radiant soul. He simply said, "Would I not be embarrassed in front of a man whom the angels are embarrassed in front of?" Just incredible.
Moving on to Section 2, the Fountain of Generosity, Wealth as a Mercy.
Now for Uthman, vast wealth was never about personal indulgence. Not at all. It was literally a tool for the salvation of his community. Just look at this number for a second, 20,000. That is the exact amount of dirhams Uthman spent to purchase the well of Ruma. See, when the early Muslims migrated to Medina, they were parched. They were seriously struggling just to find clean drinking water. So with this massive sum of money, Uthman went and bought the well, and he literally opened the water up to the thirsty community completely for free. It proved, absolutely beyond a doubt, that wealth held in the hands of a true believer is a life-saving mercy.
And this generosity, it wasn't just some one-time event, it was a lifelong commitment. He was constantly using his merchant fortune to liberate slaves who were being tortured for their new faith. Probably most famously, during the critical Tabuk expedition, which was known as the Army of Hardship, Uthman practically single-handedly funded the mission when others had absolutely nothing. We're talking vast amounts of gold and over 1,000 camels. It was selfless sacrifices exactly like these that made him one of the Ashra Mubashra, the 10 companions who were explicitly promised paradise while they were literally still walking the earth.
Section 3. Guiding the Third Caliphate, Expansion and Infrastructure.
So following the passing of the Prophet and then Abu Bakr and the tragic assassination of Umar, this rapidly expanding empire really needed a new leader. Now, if we compare eras on the screen here, Abu Bakr and Umar brilliantly consolidated Arabia and set up these deep foundational systems of justice, right? But Uthman built upon those very pillars to initiate these massive territorial leaps. Under his guidance, the empire's reach extended incredibly deep into Syria, Egypt, and Persia. Muslim armies successfully reached places like Cyprus, Rhodes, the Ifriqiya region, and even Anatolia, as far as Tiflis. It was just a massive, massive expansion.
But here's the thing. He didn't just conquer. He actually built the connective physical tissue of the early Islamic State. For instance, he beautifully enlarged the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. He used stone and plaster just to accommodate the completely exploding population of worshippers. He also constructed major roads to safely connect all these distant, far-flung cities. And, this is crucial, he built aqueducts. He wanted to guarantee reliable water supplies everywhere, basically ensuring the economic prosperity of all his citizens. A true visionary administrator.
Which brings us to Section 4, Standardizing the Holy Qur'an, Preserving the Word for Eternity.
And this right here is arguably Uthman's most enduring monument. Because as the empire grew to include, countless non-native Arabic speakers, from Persia all the way to Byzantine lands, a huge new challenge emerged. To really understand why Uthman had to step in, let's just look at the historical journey of the text for a second.
So during the Prophet's life, it was recorded on scattered materials like leaves, bones, leather. Then during Abu Bakr's reign, Zayd ibn Thabit compiles it into a single master book. Then it's safeguarded by Umar and his daughter Hafsa. But by the time of Uthman's reign, all these diverse regional pronunciations seriously threatened the unity of the entire Ummah.
So what does he do? Well, to protect this sacred text from fragmenting, Uthman initiates this incredibly meticulous process. First, he forms a highly trusted committee, once again led by Zayd ibn Thabit. They go and retrieve the master copy from Hafsa. Then, they carefully transcribe identical standard copies exclusively in the original Qurayshi dialect. After that, he distributes these exact copies to major hubs like Mecca, Medina, Kufa, and Basra. And finally, he takes a huge, brave step. He boldly orders all variant versions to be completely destroyed. It sounds intense, but it was a single, decisive action that completely unified the hearts and tongues of the Muslim world for eternity.
Section 5. An Eternal Islamic Legacy. Patience in the Face of Fitna.
It's tough to talk about, but despite all his immense contributions, the later years of his caliphate were really overshadowed by accusations from different regional factions. When an angry mob actually besieged his home, bringing this deep fitna, or turmoil, right to his doorstep, Uthman made a profound choice. He absolutely point-blank refused to shed Muslim blood just to defend his own life. Choosing patience over the sword, he just sat calmly by his window, peacefully reciting the very book he had literally dedicated his reign to preserving. And that is exactly how he met his Lord as a martyr.
So I want to leave you with this thought. The next time you read the perfectly preserved words of the standard Quran today, how are you going to reflect on the legacy of Uthman ibn Affan? Here was a man of unimaginable wealth who literally gave everything back to his community. A soul so modest the angels themselves respected him. And a leader who ultimately sacrificed his own life so that the word of Allah would reach you today, perfectly unchanged. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you guys next time.